Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 350th episode of the Say Report. Yay!
Confetti.
Pop, 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 pop.
What other audio versions of celebration can we do?
It's getting hot in her. That's that. That's celebration.
What?
Regardless, I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, as always, the poobah of Frasier, and the only one I've ever recorded a full episode of the Say Report with, because, you know, he was a little self-conscious during the last very special episode. It's Sejohn Sarowik. How you doing, Sejohn?
Self-conscious? No, I think you very much alluded that might not be...
There might be others. Well, here's the crazy thing. Like, 350 episodes, we could explore the multiverse as if we haven't already explored the multiverse. In the multiverse, you think there are other versions of the Say Report with other co-hosts besides me to you or you to me? Sejohn?
No, because this is the worst timeline, so this is the only one that we can exist.
Wow. I mean, it is kind of the worst timeline. But before we get to why, let's celebrate the one good thing that happened since the last time we recorded an episode proper of the Say Report. There is that very special episode where we talk about Mr. Brightside, and make sure you stay till after the will for a special surprise from one of your Say Reporters. Hoink. I'm sorry, Sejohn. That's a fun one. That's just... My goodness, that might be the future of very special episodes if certain things continue. But as we alluded to in that, because we recorded that the day that all of the good things happen, my sister got a very interesting birthday present, in as after 148 days of striking, the Writers Guild of America got what they wanted. He said with air quotes, because it looks like in the light of day and in retrospect, maybe it wasn't the best thing for some people. But let's not talk about the negative right now. Let's talk about the positive and the fact that the WGA is no longer on strike.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You just kind of alluded to negatives, and I had not heard any of that, so I'm coming off guard.
Oh, sorry. I mean, like, we could do that. It's a brief overview. It's the fact that, like, because it went on as long as it did, the force majeure did kick in. So a bunch of the people who had jobs when they went on strike don't have jobs now, so they don't get to take advantage of, like, having a writer's room with a required number of writers in it, or the higher wages, or all the other benefits that they got.
They will when they get jobs.
When they get a job, right?
Right, they need to be rehired. Yeah, which is, you know, it's an unfortunate part of this, like, of this whole math with the strike. But, yeah, I mean, the fact that the strike went on as long as it did. But I mean, that's part of the whole resolve, right? Is, can the union stick it out long enough and take care of its people long enough to make sure they get what they want? It's not pretty. Like, I mean, like, I think we talked about this a little bit. Maybe it was on the special episode, so I'll say it again here. But, like, it's not supposed to be pretty. It's not supposed to be easy. If that was the case, it wouldn't be accomplishing anything, right?
Exactly. We've said that in other episodes where, I mean, it's dirty when you have to strike to get your rights and everything and to get paid a fair wage. Like, there are some unfortunate casualties that you're going to go through, and it might not be like loss of life, but there are people who might lose their jobs. But
it's important to note that rules like having certain numbers of people in the writer's room can actually make sure that people that did lose their jobs, or that there is something waiting for them. And also, they're not going to there isn't going to be anybody out there hiring that's going to look at, like, what happened at your last job. Well, there was a strike and I got fired by force majeure. Like, that's not going to be a reason to not hire somebody again, right?
Right. I think the scarier thing for people, and the reason why there's a little bit of buyer's remorse, and not... honestly, overall, what they got is fantastic. But studios really use the writer's strike and are currently using the SAG-AFTRA strike, which is still going on. That's a thing to remember. Just because the writers got a resolution does not mean that the actors were able to come to a resolution. But it's one of those things where a lot of de-renewals or unrenewals of shows happened. like en masse. Like I've talked about a couple of the shows that, I care about that it happened to, and like it's disappointing. So that is a thing where there also doesn't seem to be as many projects to try to get a job as a writer, because the boom of content that we saw with the pandemic has leveled out. Is that how you would describe a boom? That it eventually levels out?
I don't think it has yet. I think it's important to note that what we probably are is it's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot longer before things even out, as you put it. Like right now, I think what it is we're seeing a lot of people dialing back. We overdid it during the pandemic. People are going to be dialing back for a few years, and a couple of years after that, we'll be back to seeing more stuff coming out. But yeah, right now there seems to be some less work being made. But again, part of that is also, part of that's a strike. Part of that is because people were getting oversaturated. Part of that is just because of the time of the year. Like, this is the time of the year where shows are not being created. Shows would have been created 3 months ago, 4 months. Like, there would have been people putting teams together months ago. And the fact that those teams weren't put in place are the reason these things don't exist now. So it's definitely set things back for sure. But it's part of why the timing of the strike actually did matter more than it looked like at the time. Like we noted, like it seems odd that they'd be going on strike when shows are finishing up for the season. But we even mentioned then. But what we're not talking about is behind the scenes. What's happening behind the scenes? They were striking at just the right time that shows couldn't be created. So again, this is all part of the math. This is all part of what it's supposed to look like. And I think looking at it like buyer's remorse is giving the studio too much power. It's not buyer's remorse. I don't think anybody that was on that strike is sitting back now thinking, shit, I wish we never struck. Of course that's not the feeling. Do they wish it didn't go on so long? Of course, yeah. I mean, do they wish that things could have played out differently? Yeah. But I don't think that there's anybody that agreed to this strike that is now sitting back going, it wasn't worth it.
No, that's true. And I guess I'm coloring it sort of negatively when I bring that up. But the unfortunate thing is, as much as I want to celebrate and be happy for people, that negativity is still seeping through, and I'm finding it a distraction, which is disappointing.
Like I said, I hadn't heard. I hadn't really heard any of it. But like, because the big thing now is, like, out here, and as far as like the Los Angeles is concerned, the ways that I've heard it out here is now's the time to get back to work. And for some people that means finding a job, but that also means that there are people out there that if the union is going to do its thing here, they should be focusing on those people now. That should be the next step, is focusing on those people that did get affected negatively by this strike and making sure that is corrected as much as they can. That this is the ideal situation for being in a union. Is you lost your job by no true fault of your own, you are willing to work, and people out there know your talent, so you just need somebody to get you in the room. That's what the union should be there for, to help you do exactly that. So fingers crossed they're able to continue doing this kind of good work that they've been doing for the last few months.
Exactly. Over the last about 5 months, right? Well, we can round to 5 months, 148 days. I mean, it technically is, I guess, if you go by the 4-week model of what a month is. But yeah, so it's I don't know, it's an interesting thing, and there are some of that minimum pay bumps: 5% first year, 4% second, 3.5% in the third. The big thing, and hopefully this means clarity and transparency is right around the corner. Though honestly, I'm not going to hold my breath on that, because in the very thing I'm about to say are the letters N, D, and A, all next to each other, short for non-disclosure agreement. And that is the fact that viewership numbers from the streaming companies need to be provided so that there can be meritorious bonuses if a show has like 1 million eyes on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, hopefully that makes streaming, I don't know, streaming is such a mystery in terms of the metrics. We have lamented that since streaming, since the show started, right? You can go back to any episode we recorded in 2017 and we're like, we'll never know exactly how many people watched it.
Was it the Justice League episode where we finally talked about some stuff that we learned in terms of how they do measure that stuff? Not that the numbers are available, but we learned more and more about Like the fact that they're not just tracking how many people are watching a thing, they're tracking how many people start a thing, how many people do not finish it, how many people come back, how how much of it are they watching before they come back, that sort of stuff. Which was especially important for something like, say, Justice League, because early numbers on that reported that it was one of the most watched premieres for a streaming service, blah blah blah. But then very very quickly that narrative turned around when the information came out that a majority of people that started that 4-hour epic never finished it.
Yeah,
and
specifically the Snyder cut of Justice League, not just the movie. Making sure. I mean, he says 4 hours. Context clues, but yeah.
Oh, we all know the world, as far as it's concerned, for the rest of time, is just going to consider that the version of the film now when people talk about it.
I mean,
right?
I definitely agree. Like, it was such a good time.
I don't, look, this is coming from somebody that, if you listen to that episode, you know damn well, I don't enjoy that fact, but, like, I feel like nowadays, if you see anybody talking about Justice League, it's weirder that they're not talking about what is considered to be by the public to be the definitive version of that movie.
I guess the only reason I want to clarify is because I dropped 2017 as a number, and it's like, it's not the one we talked about. I think it was 2018 that we actually talked about. Then that movie finally came out in November, but we're talking about specifically the direct to streaming one, and Sejohn going ham. Like, a whole hour of it is basically Sejohn describing the technology on how they can, like, calculate to the frame how much of it you watched, and how long you were paused on that specific, like, frame of the film.
Right. So, so this is important information that supposedly these writers are going to have better access to. I won't say full access. I won't say more access than they had, because I honestly don't know. Like, it's been so up in the air, as you said. It's been so like, it's been so hidden from us. We don't know who had access to what or how or when, right? And there's been questions, like, as fans from the outside looking in, as people completely disconnected from that system of, like, decision making, it's been fucking buck wild to watch shows that don't get renewed, or like shows that seem to go in weird directions on the last season, things like that. Funny enough, right? Like, we sit back and we go, why is this happening? Why is that happening? And the only assumption we can have is something is so popular or so financially worth it that these people are just willing to go in directions that we as the audience don't necessarily want them to. This transparency is going to really help, knowing that even the writers in the room creating this stuff didn't often know what people were actually like is like kind of eye-opening, right?
Yeah, that it was just a voice from on high saying, this is what we need you to do because of the viewers, and you not understanding if that means, is that because nobody's watching it and they want it to be more compelling, or is that because everybody's watching it and they want it to be more compelling? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's like a fucking, like, it's like watching a freshman version of The Dumbwaiter, right? Like,
exactly.
Like, this message just comes down and you're just like, well, I guess we got to kill off this character now, and everybody in the room is like, we weren't planning on that, were we? Well, no, but apparently this is what everybody wants to see. And then it comes out and everybody's like, we're gonna kill that guy. And all the writers are just sitting there scratching their heads like, what the fuck were we doing?
We thought nobody liked Joe Kidd, so we killed Joe Kidd. That's fun. That's a fun inside reference.
But like, but there's this hope that kind of stuff will lead to better support for the writers, and better support not just financially, although that was a huge part of all of this, but also artistically, right? I think that a large part of this strike that we haven't really talked about, and rightfully so, they can't talk about it this way because this is just not how the world works. But I think a large part of all of this is also that with all of the pressure that they have been under because of things like lack of money, lack of understanding on how things are doing, blah, 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 they also haven't felt the ability to artistically do anything unique or fun or interesting. Everything has gotten very stale again, and the work has not been fun anymore. It's all been very mechanical and very methodical, which is not the reason that you join the arts, right? There is a good number of people that work in the arts that are administrative minded, and that kind of like mechanical nature does work for them. But and like, it's necessary. That's not,
you need some
that's not
people
the
like
end game, right?
No,
right.
It's not the end game, but
right.
Like, there's a reason that stage managers exist. Is what I'm going to say. Right. Like, you need somebody who can keep all of the creative people on task when it's time to be on task. But
you can't stifle it either,
exactly,
right?
Yeah. You need to understand the balance there. And honestly, with the demands that were being levied upon them to be like, we need 10 episodes right now or Paramount Plus fails and millions of money is lost and jobs are lost. And it'll be on you because you couldn't produce 10 episodes of a reboot of a show that people loved 30 years ago. Like, that pressure puts you into a certain mindset, and what you're producing is, a lot less inventive or like scary or chance. Like
I'll eat a little crow here. Like this is a thing that I have often levied against like streaming services like Netflix and Hulu and Max to a point, but Netflix especially, where you have these creatives that they bring on that will do a season's worth of a show and end on a massive cliffhanger, not knowing whether or not they're going to be renewed. And anybody that goes into Netflix making a show nowadays should be aware that, like, look, you're going to want to get this story as wrapped up as you can. Not saying that you have to tie up every loose end. Leaving the door open to build your world is always fun, but like, come on, like let's not completely ignore the ending of a storyline when you don't know if you're going to be renewed next season. That has been something that I have said 1,000 times, but knowing some of the information that has now come out from this strike about like what kind of like promises were possibly being made and strings that were being dangled and like you know, like the whole carrot stick system that we thought existed one way, we're slowly learning was a hell of a lot more stick and a very, very, very little amount of carrot.
It was pretty much a picture of a carrot. You're not eating this carrot. Like, this is what you might get.
Right. So this idea being like, we don't really know now, like what, like, you know, one of the biggest examples of that is something like Cowboy Bebop, right?
That's exactly where my mind went. Yeah.
Right, yeah. You and I really enjoyed what they did with that, and were very disappointed in the fact that they were never going to get to do more. Because from what we heard out here, there was all of this stuff about how it was not being watched, and it was pretty quickly put out that it wasn't going to be renewed. But for all we know, it could have been very thoroughly enjoyed, but the backlash by the public alone could have been why Netflix. This will give the writers the ability to actually look at the numbers and go, whoa, you don't get to tell us that this is not successful just because there's a loud minority of people out there that are saying a thing, when we look at the numbers and we see that it's still being watched by 100 million people. Like, I think this gives us a little bit more, it gives the writers a little bit more, you know, weight on their conversation, their side of the conversation.
To go along,
this will be really interesting.
The other side of that, the Velma, and the fact there, like, to actually see those numbers, because everybody was hating on that show, and, you know, from the outside, as like a casual observer, it looks like all Max is going to see with that is that, oh my God, people are talking about our show, they must love it. But then if they actually give the numbers down, and it's not that many people who are watching it, it's just a bunch of people who are deriding it and adding to the hate mongering with memes and things that one person created and then building off of that. Is it worth creating more of this show? Or like, do I, as a writer, what do I have to do so that people are like actually want to watch it and not just pile on hatred and negativity because somebody watched it and then shared, I can't believe this happened in the series.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest crime of all in all of this is Twitter really fucked all of this shit up, this conversation up completely, and now they're not even around to be like mad at anymore, right? Like, because
well, they're around.
What we're talking about, well,
they're just hiding.
What we're talking
they're Racer X now.
Yeah, and even then, I think anybody that looked at X today and looked at Twitter 5 years ago would tell you that they were two different platforms. I think if you didn't tell them that X is what Twitter became, I don't think they would have been able to figure that out.
I know Speed Racer wouldn't be able to tell the difference, so I'm sticking with the metaphor.
But what we're talking about is this idea that like that public perception, social media has gained such a weight over the years past the hard facts of the you know, the thing. And like, and I'm not saying that stuff should be completely ignored, right? Like critical response and growing a fan base, all of that stuff is super important, but the lack of contextualizing that information with actual hard numbers of stuff is just fascinating. Like, how can you run a business that way, entirely on speculation? Like, and I think that was a huge part of what they were fighting for, is they wanted to limit the variables. They wanted to limit the speculation when they were having these kinds of conversations about how much money people should be getting. conversations about what shows should continue and shouldn't. Conversations about what shows should get a chance to even, get a shot, right? Like I know we started this with talking about how there are gaps, right? There are holes in what shows people can work on. There are jobs that have just disappeared because of all of this. There are things that are probably never going to be the same because of this. But I think that the unfortunate truth of this kind of work is like the culling is necessary, right? Like you trim back the tree so that it can grow bigger and stronger in the future. And then, like I said before, the important bit now is whatever the union does to step into that next phase. That reconstruction of people's lives is hugely important. And if they dip out now, then what good is the union for, right? And there has been no indication that they will, by the way. Like there is all the indication in the world that they're going to continue to take care of their people.
Yeah, exactly. It's been 4 days since the deal was struck and the strike officially ended. 4 days have passed. It makes sense to kind of go through a grieving process at that time. Of course, you're going to be like angry or remorseful about the things that may have transpired that you weren't even considering. Because at the time, your goal is to end this strike with an amenable growth to your membership, right? Your union membership, to make sure that it's going to be good. But then, like, you take off the strike sunglasses and you look into the sun again and you realize some of the things that were lost during that battle. And I think that's what we're seeing. Just because the WGA strike is over does not mean we're never going to address it again on this show, because we need to follow up and we need to see how things will continue going forward.
I mean, much the same way that the strike 15 years ago completely changed the landscape of television going forward.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, you can't talk about the golden age of television and not talk about that strike at the same time, right? Like, yeah. Like the overlapping effects that those two events both kind of had on each other are can't untangle them, right?
The construction of what I thought was the best season of a show that everyone else loved that I was kind of meh on, as a result of the fact that we only have time to write 13 episodes.
I mean,
so
one of my favorite
filler.
I mean, like without getting too promotional or into too many details, but there are straight up shows that we know of, characters and actors that we adore, that by all accounts only exist and survived because the writers went on strike and didn't have time to write them off or kill off the show or end the season, or like, because those things didn't happen, certain things that we now hold up as like the pinnacle of television straight up wouldn't have existed. Like there have been creatives that have come out and admitted that, like, yeah, we went on strike and so I didn't get to end the show the way I wanted, so I wrote 2 more seasons and it turns out everybody preferred that.
Yeah, people would have been pissed if I had just ended it the way I was going to end it.
Right. Yeah, like we have all of these stories about the ways that the last strike shaped television for that decade and a half. We're going to see the same thing going forward with this. And
I certainly hope so. Yeah, like
it's going to be everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, straight up podcasting is never going to be quite the same, right? Like, listen to the way that we've had to do this show for the last few months, and like we're small potatoes in this grand scheme, right? Like there are so many podcasts and shows out there that had to go on hiatus or got created, or had to shift focus, that are now completely different shows than they were 6 months ago, you know?
Exactly. And that was the thing that I was going to say. You talk about the creativity that is behind the arts, having to get creative in this space, in just our small corner of the arts with the Say Report, and to avoid what I think both of us are passionate about and still find things to talk about each episode. I've loved it. My creative muscles have never felt like stronger than in what we've been doing right here at the show. So yeah, hopefully
we have not gone out on such strenuous limbs since we first started this show, you know, and we were still trying to figure out like formats and formulas and bits and skits and shit. Like back when we were still trying to figure out what the hell we were even doing every week. Like that is the last time I think I put this much like mental energy behind the Say Report. And like, you're right, it has been good. You know, like part of doing the show, part of working with you, is like this idea that, that this is something that used to come so naturally to us and still comes so naturally to us. And I think that that's part of where we fell when we first started this show, is we were like, should we be putting in so much effort, or should we just do what we always wanted to do? And we settled, right? And we figured out what it is, where we're at. But like getting back to pushing ourselves again has been interesting and rewarding.
Oh, most definitely. And so, and now put that on top of an entire industry that now doesn't need to worry about, am I still going to have a job after I finish this up? Is it going to be one of those situations where, no, Taylor Sheridan's writing every episode of this, so there are no other writers on the show. It's just the showrunner who's in charge of it. And it's like, oh, okay, so that's like 10 jobs that just disappeared for a show that everybody's watching. Like,
I mean, I also have a bunch of friends and family that have really started to dig into and learn how things like YouTube and stuff also work because of all of this. Because they've had a lot of questions about promotional material and things that they have seen online, like both web shows and all sorts of like cross platform marketing that you normally see for like movies and shit, being like confused, like hey, I thought everybody was on strike. Why is this video of Owen Wilson talking about his roles being posted mysteriously as his new movie hits theaters when they're supposed to not be promoting work? And like, well, there's a lot of reasons for that. First of all, this video may not fall under that kind of contract. Secondly, this may have been filmed before he went on that strike and they still have the right to release it. Like, there's all of these things, and people are starting to talk about this. We had a whole conversation the other day within the house with some friends of ours, because we're big Dropout TV fans, and they just had their big announcement last week about how they're officially dropping College Humor completely, with the blessing of the College Humor old guard. Like in the video that Sam Reich posted, he actually talks with the old creators of College Humor, who give him his blessing to carry on without it, and it's really interesting stuff. But all these people have just been watching, I've been watching Dropout to kind of fill the void in a lot of this time, and a lot of people have been like, why are they still able to perform stuff? Well, because none of them are SAG or WGA related. They do have people that come on that are that, and so there are certain pieces of their work that they have openly been like, yeah, like, you probably shouldn't focus on this stuff because we had this actor come in for this special, but like beyond that, there's 1,000 other episodes of that show, so just check those out instead. That kind of shit. And like, also, Sam Reich had to come out and be like, we do fully support these strikes, we just don't employ anybody from these unions, right? But the fact that he even had to come out and say that, because people were questioning and looking into the ways that whole program works, and that's been true across YouTube. There's been people all over the place. I think Hot Ones has put up a few episodes, but it's all been like musicians and shit, right? Like I think Dave Grohl recently or something. like there's been all of this stuff that's been going on in the periphery of the entertainment space that is something new and exciting and different, and people are learning, people are exploring.
Yeah, it has been really interesting. Not on the other side of that, the people who know nothing about it. I met up with some friends for breakfast yesterday, and after we placed our order, and that like quiet that kind of comes over the table as like, now it's time to transition as we wait for the food, was broken by Claude going, so tell me about the WGA SAG-AFTRA strike. What is it that I have to know? And he had no idea that the writer's strike was over. I'm like, well, I guess what you need to know is that it's only SAG-AFTRA who's on strike right now. The WGA, they ended things on Wednesday with pretty amenable terms, though right now they're still in that fallout trying to determine, is this going to be a net benefit? Because they're just staring in the face of such loss because of the amount of time they were on strike. And it was an interesting conversation, and that's just because that's somebody who basically doesn't really like follow the industry, and I get that if you have no interest in it. And then even my father, all right, so now that the writer's strike is over, and what does that mean? Like, are the actors still striking? It's like, yeah, they are, Dad. And that's a whole other kettle of fish, which feels like a time to transition to. Are they in as strong a position now as they were when it was two unions striking in solidarity? Remember
Well, I
how
will say this, that the WGA has made it pretty abundantly clear that they stand in solidarity still with SAG.
yeah.
So a lot of things like their moratorium on, shows talking, like a lot of the rules that they kind of put out there and put in place about what could and couldn't be talked about that were put out there with both the SAG understanding and WGA understanding, they still stand by those, right? So us talking about shit on the show, yes, we would do it anyway because of SAG, but also WGA is still talking about like, hey, yeah, you should probably put the kibosh on those kinds of conversations until this stuff is over, right? So like there is definitely something to be said about how one of them coming to an agreement and ending their strike does certainly kind of weaken the position a bit, but they were so quick to cut that off at the head by being like, no, we still stand with them though. Like, yes, we have figured our shit out, but you need to figure their shit out now. Like immediately shift to that. So like, and kudos on them for that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it'd be really shitty if they didn't do that.
Well, right. But like, I think also they also believe in it. Like, they didn't just do it for optics. They also want, yeah.
I think I'm more glaring at the directors when I say that. And the whole, no, we got a deal. What are you talking about? Directors aren't going to go on strike. And it's like,
I am so fed up with the people that have been representing the directors' guilds for the last like year, to be entirely honest. Everything from like fucking Spielberg's bullshit about like shitting on blockbuster films as if he wasn't the one that goddamn created the genre, right? To like Scorsese out there trying to talk about how we all need to be saved from Disney. It's like, all right, calm down. Like you are one of the most successful auteur directors of all time. You don't have much of a leg to stand on. Like, I understand that puts you in a unique position to maybe have some voice, but the vitriol with which he talks about the industry that he has so clearly benefited from starts to get a little grinding sometimes.
Oh my god! Especially, let's see if I can do this without revealing anything or that. There was that news story that came out regarding one of Martin Scorsese's films that the studios were like, can we leave it open for a sequel? And he was like vehemently, no, that'll never happen. And my response to that is, well, that film is a remake of a film that's the first in a trilogy. So it's not incredibly insane for the studio to be like, hey, we might want to adapt the other two parts of this trilogy. Can you leave us a path to do that?
Man, I really wish we could talk about this more, because I thought part of the deal was that he had kind of done all three movies in one movie. But
there are definitely things from them, but it's also not. But is it crazy for that? Like, he's like, I can't believe the studio would say that to me.
And it's like, for the concept of a sequel to that movie is ridiculous in light of.
It's just like, I'm sorry, it's not. It's more than a state of like, can you believe the studio asked me to do that? And it's like, yeah. That's not the least believable part of this story, sir. Yeah, I know. I wish we could talk about it too, because I read that and I'm just like, did he not know? No, he clearly did, because I've seen the three movies and there are parts from it, but then like, but if he didn't have anything to do with the script, he just directed it, and it was the screenwriter who watched all three so that they could kind of make a melange of them into that American adaptation, then I don't know. It was just like, what a weird thing to be like, oh, this movie that I adapted from a trilogy, why the fuck would it ever have a sequel? And it's like, come on, friend, what are you talking about?
Shit.
What?
For anybody that doesn't know, I have, for the last few months as we have been in this strike, I have been like keeping furious notes about dumb questions I want to ask, but we can't on air. And then like I run them by Devon on a pretty regular basis. He doesn't know that I'm pulling them from a list, but I just thought of another one that I need to ask you off mic, because we can't.
I'm just super happy about this, like 100%, because I'm doing the same thing. There are the things that like get my blood boiling, and there's going to be an episode, we're probably going to call it the supplemental report, that is literally going to be, as of right now, like 3 months worth of material that we can
and what's funny
finally
is, like,
address.
I'm not even talking about, like, man, this is a topic we should dive into. Literally, like, yes or no questions, like, that we just can't because of the details.
Because
like,
I know that's completely understandable.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. I'm like, it's gonna be like a deluge of
it's gonna
all
be like a lightning round of just, like...
And I look forward to it. But, like, right now, I'm fine diving in and, like, looking at the strike and making sure that there are enough people that I speak to in real life who do not understand it fully. So I think it's a great topic to discuss and just done that. But yeah, and don't worry. Here's the other thing that I will say without mentioning the film. I fully intended to force Sejohn to one day do a VSE on this particular film. So it will get its proper. In fact, I think I called the shot back in the two very special episodes from March and April of last year, because this particular film was the third one I got and like a buy 3 for $10 deal. So so I'm not going to do a VSE on that particular film. So that's a lot in there. But yeah, the directors have not been painting themselves in the best light. Is a very true statement, Sejohn.
Yeah, I don't know. I like, and I'm not going to attribute like the attitude of a few like figureheads to the entire like industry. Like, I know that there are plenty of people in that union that feel very much in solidarity with like the WGA and SAG, but man, the union as a whole sure as hell couldn't pull their head out of their ass and show it. So
yeah, it was a very weird moment in this whole strike like landscape. And I want to say one other thing. All of the people who were like, man, if Drew Barrymore had just waited a week, she would have been fine. You also need to look at what Drew Barrymore did as probably a situation for the studios to be like, maybe we don't have as large an amount of content to keep releasing because we didn't consider that, oh yeah, we have all these talk shows that are under contract, but, writers need to write for those shows.
Well, and actors need to show up to be on those shows, right? Like, Drew has... as an entity, the show, Drew has the benefit of being a little bit less dependent on that, but not completely free from it. She has guest stars on all the time, but like she also has segments where like she cooks with like Samin and shit like that. So like there's definitely ways that Drew could do her show minus like other talent showing up, but not writing, right? Like you mentioned, like she had like, what was it, like 4 or 5 staff writers that they couldn't bring back on because of the strike?
Because of the strike, and they're like, we're still going to keep going. It's like, no, but that's bad because essentially you're lifting up your nose at those people and you're scabbing. And it's like, oh, I didn't realize that. And I don't think the studios fully realized that either. So I think that announcement for like that show to come back and the huge outcry that came from it was like, maybe we do need to get the writers thing sorted.
Yeah, so we can let Drew Barrymore's naivety win the day.
No, I mean, I can't believe that Kimmel and Colbert are back tonight, if you're listening to this on the day it released. And Maher was back on Friday, but Maher was ready to go back probably right when the strike started, right? What a great way to get eyes on me.
Well, Bill Maher doesn't think of his staff as anything more than just an extension of his own dick. So, like,
exactly.
Like he's pretty much said everything up to that
They're basically any writers in the show are basically just editors of my own content. I mean, that's not true, sir, but that's certainly how you act.
Right. Yeah. So like he was. Yeah. I don't know. Bill Maher. I mean, in some ways, the Bill Maher problem is actually more interesting than the Drew Barrymore one because like. Drew coming out and announcing that it was going to be returning, and again, I'm talking about the show proper, like not just Drew Barrymore. I don't want to keep putting all of the blame on Drew Barrymore because, like, as much as she is definitely a very big creative force behind that show, she's not the only person that made this decision, right? There was a team of people that thought this was a good idea.
Well, it's also the contract issue of it all. It's the fact that like our contract, we have to abide by.
But the outward appearance of Drew Barrymore herself and of that show is definitely one that is much more amicable to society, and in a lot of ways it's not so antagonistic as, say, like a Bill Maher is, right? So Drew Barrymore coming out and being like, we're going to come back now, you know, like we have the ability to, and the way that our contracts work, it's going to let us do this, so we're back for you. And then the world being like, no, you're not reading the room right. And then them retracting it, like, that's a very, like, sad but bittersweet, like, moment, right? Bill Maher coming out with, like, his dick swinging and saying, being like, we're coming on back now that we figured out how to do this. And it's like, no. like for him to show any humility and be like, oh, never mind, we're not going to come back just yet, that was kind of like that was what caught my attention more than the supposed nice guys over at the Drew Barrymore show. I'm not too surprised when society tells them, like, this ain't the best idea. They listen. Seeing Bill Maher, who's always been willing to give a middle finger to a mob of people telling him he's wrong, for good or for ill, to see even him kind of step back was kind of like, oh shit, there is more going on behind the scenes than even we realized, right?
Oh, it is taking a lot of me to not say what I want to say about Bill Maher right now. Just because it's what got him canceled, and why would I just repeat that? But, like, kind of fuck Bill Maher, too, with the, like, oh, it's resolved, we're coming back on Friday. Like, so you're just going to do the show that you were intending to do before everybody yelled at you, right?
Do you think that he's, like, sad that he's just basically become Dennis Miller Part 2?
Oh, I think
Does that ever occur to him?
I mean, I think that he would, like, consider himself the evolution of Dennis Miller. I've taken what he was doing and refined it and made it better. And then, of course, he would also just not acknowledge Dennis Miller, I don't think. I think that, like, I took what HBO was putting out on Friday nights and I refined it into gold. And, like,
if the two of them ever, like, touched each other, it would be like world ending. Like two.
It'd be like
when they
in
say
that
like
movie.
two people from different universes shouldn't touch one another.
Yeah.
Because, like, it would stop time, right?
I'm old. Yeah, no, it's that whole thing is just really good. And his whole thing of, like, yeah, so we're going to do the show, but there won't be an opening monologue. There won't be new rules. There won't be between segments. It'll just be me talking to people. And it's like, so, I mean, you're not really doing the show at that point, right? Like,
I gotta be honest, man. That's some of the worst parts of your whole shtick is when you try and talk to people, because either A, they're much smarter than you, and it's just watching you be an ignorant idiot for 20 minutes, or B, you purposely bring on people you are much smarter than, and it's you still being an ignorant idiot, but also then being an asshole about it.
But punching down. You're
Right.
either getting beaten up or you're doling out a beating, and it's just very strange. But hell, at least he believes in something. And I said it, so let's move on to the next thing. Because, I mean, anything else you want to talk about with this strike? And, like, we're going to be monitoring the landscape. So, we'll be here still. It's not over. It's not 100% resolved. And SAG-AFTRA is still on strike. And honestly, after everything they gave to the writers, I feel like the studios will probably drag their feet. Because they have the late night shows back. They have daytime television back. And the amount of reality and game shows that have already started is blowing my mind. And Animation Domination is back tonight because those are all, like, stockpiled.
Yeah, banks.
So
yeah, for sure.
it's, who knows. But anything else to say before we transition? I think we're going to the islands, Sejohn. So anything else to add?
Oh, man, let's do it.
All right, so one of the tasks from last week, doled out by myself, the Devon Decker, was to try and complete Yoshi's Island. Because, as I mentioned, I was hanging out with Claude, and he has been on me to finally finish Yoshi's Island. And I just had never done it. So I put my nose to the grindstone, I was possessed by the spirit of the true gamer, plowed through the first 4 worlds last Sunday, and then finished it off the Monday afterwards. I enjoyed my time with it, but I have some thoughts about the game. But I asked Sejohn to...
I think the important thing to start off with is, why do you feel like... I mean, Claude's not the only person you've ever talked about that has said this to you. Like, why do you think people dig so hard into this game?
I don't know. Honestly, I still don't understand. As far as I'm concerned, it's just nostalgia-based. It is a nostalgia of having played it in 1995 And that's where it stems from. And that's a really interesting position for me to take on a Mario game, because so much of my love for like Super Mario Brothers 1 through World is based on that nostalgia. But like, not just the nostalgia from when I was a kid, but the nostalgia from when it was 9th grade and I decided that like what I would do when I got down home from school to unwind would be to speed run one of those games as I listened to the local radio station, waiting for my father to get home. And then he would get home and I would do my homework while dinner was preparing. So it's not just nostalgia from when I was like a little itty baby. It's also nostalgia. Like, it's two shades of nostalgia. It's like a Neapolitan of nostalgia for me. So then for me to look at a game in the Super Mario Brothers series and be like, I think the only people like it is because they're nostalgic for it, kind of seems hypocritical. But at the base, I don't have that nostalgia for new Super Mario, for Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, hereafter referred to as just Yoshi's Island.
Yeah, it's been an interesting one for me my whole life, because Yoshi's Island is one of those ones that we would rent all the time. We would rent Yoshi's Island all the time from Blockbuster and Major Video and stuff like that, because it was just one of the few games that they had there that looked acceptable to my parents, right? Like, it didn't have, like, it wasn't a Mortal Kombat cover, or it wasn't like, you know, some girl in a bikini on the cover or something like that. And then on top of that, it was also Mario based, right? So like, there was also this attitude of just like, well, you like other Mario stuff, so like this one is lumped in with that. So I do have all these weird experiences with it, but as I've mentioned before, like when I've like, I couldn't do much with it. I could get through World 1, but then like really early stuff in World 2 was just too all over the place for me. I was never really big on like exploring video games, like video games that make you explore. I mean, like I was never very big on video games that weren't kind of giving you specific direction, telling you what to do. There was a lot of stuff that I just didn't love about the way that Yoshi's Island was presented, that to me was so antithetical to Mario, right? Like, there was so much stuff in Super Mario World that they do such a good job of teaching you how to play that game, that by the time you get to some of the crazier stuff by the end of that game, you've done it 1,000 times. You've learned how to do it. You can do it. It's very good at teaching you as you go, but not just mechanics, also just like how to play a video, like how to be a gamer, right? Like giving save points at a certain point, meaning at this point now, like, you can walk away. Like, it's been a lot of work, you've pushed yourself to this point, but at this point the game is not going to go anywhere, so walk away, just walk away, right? Like that kind of thing, like teaching you kind of how to play the game both physically and at a meta level, right? Pop on Yoshi's Island, and there's this weird kind of feeling. And when I was younger, up until probably this week when I started kind of really digging into this game, I always kind of associated that with the fact that I didn't feel like it was a Mario game. It didn't have certain things that I consider to be very Mario specific. So this past week, though, because you asked me to dive a little bit deeper into it, I realized it's a little bit more nuanced than that. There actually is a really interesting meta level of Super Mario over this game. I posted, and this was me referencing it now, Dev, but I posted a video actually in our Discord, because this is kind of the thing that made it start to click for me. But there's a YouTube channel called What's So Great About Gaming. If you have any video game YouTube experience, you've probably seen their shit's at least been recommended to you if you have not at least watched one of their videos. They're the ones that do the What's So Great About series and then insert games. So there's one for Yoshi's Island, right? And watching that video while I was playing, he does a lot of setup work in that to talk about the ways that it brings forward Super Mario mentality, things about how it teaches you how to play. So like the big example that he gives early in the video is the idea of avoiding enemies, and enemies that can only be killed via egg, right? Because the first couple of enemies you meet can either be eaten and turned into eggs, eaten and spit out, or jumped on. So it's super easy to eliminate the first few enemies that you run into, because you have all these options about how you can do it. And if you experiment a bit, you figure some shit out. But if you don't, there's also little text boxes along the way, which again, he points out is something straight out of Super Mario. The speaker boxes in Super Mario, here they're these face boxes that you can hit, and they explain how to do all this shit, right? But as you go along in that first level, one of the first things that you encounter is a piranha plant. And it's not a piranha plant like you know them from Super Mario, but it's still pretty recognizable as a piranha plant. But like it's following you, it's not in a tube, it's just chilling out, right? And you can't jump on it, and you can't throw other enemies at it. The only thing you can do is throw an egg at it. So and they place it in a way that you have to realize that you can throw eggs in directions more than just forward or back, right? Like you can throw eggs in like different angles and bounce it and shit. And now the other important thing about this piranha plant is you can also just completely avoid it, which is also a big thing in this game. Is there are some enemies that are just not worth it. Maybe you don't have the eggs to kill them. Maybe you don't have the desire or time. You don't need to. Like avoiding enemies in this game is totally encouraged, right? So like you learn that. But the next set of piranha plants you come up against are guarding a tube that you clearly want to go down. So then you are in this position where it's like, okay, I could avoid these guys, but then I can't go and find that secret I want. There's also two of them now. One's on the ceiling. Great, they can be on the ceiling. Like it is teaching you as you go, right? And so like this whole idea that like that is very, very Super Mario, right? And then there's the whole like world setup, right? Like the characters that you see are all very clearly Super Mario characters, despite like the art style and all that sort of shit. So like there is something very Super Mario in that sense, but it's the ways that it's not Super Mario that are just so like disconcerting to me. And do you know the number one thing that I realized about this game that really is a turnoff for me, and I realize may not be a turnoff for everybody, why there may be so many people that love this game despite my issues with ever being able to get connected to it? If you could figure out one thing about this game, and I'll give you a hint, it's a visual thing. Is there a visual thing that you think really irks me?
Is it just like the aesthetic overall, the like hand-drawn, stitched together aesthetic of the game?
No, I'm down on the hand-drawn stuff. I really prefer some of the later stuff with Yoshi where they do things like the crafted world and stuff like that. I've got no problem with the art style. Although was getting some very like Wind Waker-y vibes reading some of the reviews people had of this game, being like, man, everything's so great about this game, but it looks like shit. It's just like, okay. But no, it's not the style, but there is something there is clearly an element to the style, and the choice is a complete lack of any UI. There is nothing on the screen except the game. There is no overhead, there is no user interface whatsoever. Your health is determined via a timer that only comes up when Baby Mario isn't on you, and you can add to that health by finding things in the world, but you don't have any visual. You kind of just have to remember, like, oh, I should pick those stars up. Like I should make the effort to go for those stars to add to my timer because I'm not up to the 30 seconds or whatever it is that they'll give me. But if you don't remember that, then you may not make certain choices because you forget that you're low on health, which I did a few times. Like, and again, this is something that I think when I was a kid was really hard for me because I wasn't constantly seeing things like that. Or, you know, one of the big things in this game is there's collectibles, right? There's red coins, there's flowers, right? And not having a counter on screen telling me how many of the flowers I've gotten, I don't necessarily know, like, should I keep exploring or should I end the level? Because I think I got this. And then you get to the end of the level and you see, oh, shit, I only got 3 of the flowers because at the end of the level, there is a ring that shows you the flowers, but you don't see that until you get all the way to the end. Right? Like, or there's all this stuff about like about your powers, right? In this game as Yoshi, you can turn into certain vehicles, and there's no real indicator how long you can be certain vehicles, and it seems to vary. And apparently, there's ways to like lengthen that time depending on what you do. Like, there's all of this stuff that you are kind of dependent on in this game. That this game is not going to just outwardly tell you. One of the biggest offenders for me, and I'm curious to hear your opinion on this one, Dev, is no mini-map. Versus something like a Mario game where it's, you know, pretty much left to right. There's definitely some up and down stuff. There's definitely some secret areas that you kind of have to go backwards for. You know, they break those patterns in Super Mario. But when they do, it's so unique and so different and so obvious that like it works with the rules that you already know by basically telling you, okay, we're breaking the rules now, so break the rules, and then you realize what you can do. In this game, they're constantly playing with the rules, but you don't know what the rules are. So like it's hard to figure out, yes, I can do this, or no, I can't. There's a lot of trial and error in this game if you want to do certain things. If you just want to go from beginning to end of each level, you can do that shit in like 2 seconds. it actually really reminds me a lot of playing Sonic the first time. Right? Like,
Yeah,
if
I
you play
get that.
Mario, and then you jump into Sonic and you just go from left to right, you're just like, okay, that took me 2 seconds. These levels are nothing. But if you actually learned how to play Sonic, one of the biggest things that you're supposed to be doing, and I'm putting air quotes around all of this shit because none of these are like true rules, but like the concept, the art, the intent behind what you're supposed to be doing in a Sonic game is you're supposed to be figuring out how to get around to certain areas. You're supposed to be discovering where like rings are and shit like that, right? And very much the same thing in Yoshi's Island. Yes, you can go beginning to end and you can get through. That is totally fine. That's an acceptable way to play this game. But if you really want to start milking this game for the content, you need to stop and literally smell the flowers sometimes, right? Like you need to like walk around, you need to throw eggs, like you see a flower that's moving a little bit and you go, looks like I could throw something into that. And then you do, and all of a sudden it starts spitting out stars, and it's just like, oh shit, okay. And then the next time you see those, you know to do that, but nothing told you to do that.
So just to make sure you don't get flamed or yelled at on it, if you stop moving briefly, the timer does come up, but it's like, I couldn't tell you how many seconds you have to stand still before the timer does show, but like the idle animation is that timer showing. When you pause the game, you do have a list of how many of the 5 flowers, how many of the red coins, and again, it shows you what your timer is out of the 30.
But compare all of this to something like Super Mario World, where all of that information is just on the screen, right?
Right. I just want to make sure.
And like,
yeah, I'm just making sure.
And like Super Mario has some non-traditional UI as well. Consider like the health, right? Like when you talk about health in a video game, you know, I'll use Link as a counterexample, right? You have heart bars along the top, and you know how many like hearts you've got. Some enemies will take off a half, some enemies will take out more, but you have a general idea of how much quote unquote health you have, right? Kirby has a health bar as well, right? Yep. Mario, very traditionally in Mario, but not traditionally in video games, his health is dictated by the size of the sprite on screen. If he's a smaller one, you understand, okay, I can't get hit. I'm down to 1 life, as it were, 1 heart, as it were. But if you get a heart suddenly, or if you get a mushroom, suddenly you have 2 hits. If you get a specialty item, depending on which game you're playing, that could even possibly give you 3 hits, right? So you're kind of like, you have this sense of what you have available to you based on the size of your character, right? In Yoshi's Island, like, there's not like a visual cue immediately. You have to go looking for that information. In a lot of ways, it's the same kind of issues I have when I play like a Dark Souls game, right? When the game is not giving me enough constant information about how I'm doing as a player, and I disconnect really quickly.
That's really interesting, because there are whole people whose argument is, and some of them are our age, they're our generation of video game players, who think that the UI ruins their immersion in the game. Mm-hmm. That's why something like Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, you can eliminate whatever UI elements that you want to have eliminated so that you feel like unencumbered and you can become more immersed in the world. But I agree with you. I agree that like part of playing that video game is sort of having that like heads up display of how I'm interacting in it, right? It's like being in a mech suit. I need to know what my power cells are like. I need to know what attacks I have available to me, right?
Well, especially when the goal in this game at the end of every level is they do a tally of all the things that you've done and collected, to not give you a constant like understanding of or where you're at on that stuff. Like it's just wild that you then get to the end of the level and it's like, okay, you collected 18 out of 20 red coins, womp womp. And it's like, well, if you had been telling me the whole time that I was at this number, I would have been more invested in doing this or this. Like, I don't know that information until I either pause the game, stand still, or end the level. All 3 things that I generally am not doing while I'm playing the game, quote unquote.
Yeah. This is how you want me to engage, and yet you won't tell me if I'm engaging correctly until I get to certain points. I don't disagree with you. In fact, my largest barrier for entry into Yoshi's Island specifically was that idea that you're supposed to get 100 on every level. to unlock the bonus stage. And then, like, to realize that that bonus stage is just a bonus stage. It's not like if you beat every level, you get some secret super boss fight. You just get the accomplishment of having completed it. And the fact that, like, all right, I got a 97, but right now I'm familiar with the first level. So I should probably go back in and get that 100 before I move forward. Like, shedding that, I was able to immerse myself in the game so much more. But it's another one where this is a game that I rented, and the furthest that I got in that one rental of the game, because I did not rent it again, because I didn't like the fight and I didn't want to, like, have to get back to it, was Sluggy the Unshaven, the boss of 5-4, where, like, you have to cut through. Well, you don't even really cut through it. Like, you manipulate the ooze of the slug so that you can hit his heart with an egg. And the whole time he's slowly moving forward. It's kind of like fighting like a wall, like a moving wall. And if you hit enough bricks, eventually you'll be able to hit its heart and hurt it. That's exactly what it is. It's not kind of like that. It's exactly how the fight works. Except it's a slug, so it's, like, less creepy. But, like, playing through the other stuff, and, like, I don't care if I get 100. My goal is to defeat Baby Bowser. So I'm just gonna focus on that. And I plowed through, like I said, the first 4 worlds, and then I got to, there are 3 levels in this game that I fucking hate. Like, right now I'm like, this is not a good level design. And it's not a good level design. 2 of them have for the same reason, and then the third one for a completely different reason. First of all, before I get to that, were you able to finish Yoshi's Island before this recording?
I was.
Oh, congratulations. So was I. I just wanted to make sure. That final fight is cool. But the final fight where you have to, like, butt slam in order to hurt him is so much more engaging than you have to wait till he's close enough to hit him with an egg. like that thing, I'm like, this is cool. How I'm, like, aiming into the distance, the background to hurt him, but there is this element of that fight but he has to be close enough for you to actually hit him.
Right, and so what's happening at that time is there's shit coming down from, like, the air and stuff, so you have to kind of, like, you have to platform a bit around stuff until he's close enough to hit him. I like that part because, like, there's a balance between having to figure out, okay, if I stand still too long, he will get me, but I need to stand still in order to throw an egg. So is he close enough for me to make the risk to stand still? And a lot of the time, he was not. Yeah,
it's just, I don't know, I'm happy to have done it. I will say this, I hate the transformations in this game. I like that most of them are optional. I think that's really interesting.
Oh, Yoshi transforming.
Yeah.
The Yoshi transforming stuff is wild. I mean, I don't know. I don't know of any level where that happens where I felt like, man, this is definitive of this level for me, right? As you said, they're pretty much always optional. I think, although, the other side of that is something like Donkey Kong Country, right? Where there are levels of those games, especially in 2, where, like, you become
you're the animal buddy right from the beginning. Yeah.
Right. And like there are levels of those games that are defined by those power-ups, right? Like, which to me is good game design. Like, in this, the power-ups feel like they're just there because, like, they needed to have power-ups of some kind. Like, I don't quite know what benefit they bring, you know? Like, there's never a moment where you're, like, doing a boss fight as the helicopter, right?
Right. In fact, the last level, 6-8, starts with that helicopter section, and I'm like, this feels so garbage. It feels so garbage that the final level is the first time that I feel like 100% hope you were paying attention to the moments where you transform into vehicles, because you better know how to move Yoshi as a helicopter.
Right.
And it's just like, okay. And I mean, I eventually got through it, but it just felt just so, I wish that there had been maybe a level in each world that was primarily you're the vehicle. And there are levels throughout, right? There's like the car level where he like it's like a funny car and he can lift up. There is a helicopter section briefly, but that one is more about like time. Like you're timed in that one
you're timed,
to make
and you
sure
have to
that
figure
you're
out how to
picking
get
up
the stuff.
other.
I will say that if you're 100%ing it, the vehicles are much more important because they do hide a lot of things with the vehicles in terms of 100%ing it. But as we've mentioned, there's no benefit to 100%ing it.
Yeah, and that's sort like those vehicle sections are weirdly meant to be rewards. Like you're rewarded for exploring, or you're rewarded for having been able to get a key from the beginning of the level all the way to the end of the level. But it oddly feels like the hurry up and wait problem of something like Ocarina of Time, where like you have to wait until that one time where you can damage. It feels like here's a detour from the game. And it's like, from a narrative standpoint, that's real rude to Mario. Mario just wants to get back to Luigi.
Yeah.
It's like
I'm not being given a good narrative reason. I'm not being a good mechanical reason. Like why is this happening? Like and to be clear, like there are moments of this sort of shit in all sorts of games, right?
Oh yeah.
So I think the reason that people are able to look past this sort of stuff is I think nostalgia is a part of it. I do also think that there is something really interesting and unique in some of the gameplay because, like, I love the egg mechanic. It really is something I really adore. And playing later Yoshi games, I actually find it even more intriguing because they get into like the whole 3D realm of the whole thing. So you can like throw eggs into like the foreground and background and stuff like that. Like that sort of stuff is really cool. And so like I love that. You said the transformations earlier, and I was worried you were talking about the boss transformations because it's actually one of my it's one of my favorite things in this game is the ways in which all of the bosses are transformed versions of enemies you've already gone up against. So again, the game is teaching you, right? You know how to attack this thing because you've attacked smaller versions of this thing throughout the last few levels. So you understand what will cause it damage, but how to do that, or what mechanics you can use to do that might be tweaked or a little new, right? There's really interesting stuff in that regard. Is this the first time that we get Kamek named Kamek?
Yes, this is where Kamek gets his name.
Yeah, like, so there's like really cool stuff in that regard in terms of Mario lore. There's some weird shit in terms of Mario lore. You know, like the whole island of the Yoshis and the idea that the Yoshi that we know that we helped in Super Mario has actually known us since we were a baby, apparently, and is apparently infinite.
If you go deeper into it, there is eventually a baby Yoshi in the Yoshi's island thing that is intended to be the Yoshi from Super Mario World,
which is even weirder. So then it's Grandpa Yoshi that we're hanging out with.
We're hanging out with Cranky Yoshi. That's hilarious. What I just said. I'm sorry. I really was proud of that. Here's what bothers me most of fucking all. Right, I'm gonna just be honest about it. Yellow Yoshi and it's like Gold Yoshi. Gold Yoshi and Purple Yoshi are the badasses of the Yoshis. Because they're the ones who do the castle levels, right? Gold Yoshi does all of the 4s, and Purple Yoshi gets to do the final boss fights of 1 through 5, but then Green Yoshi steps in to be the effing hero. And that pisses me off so much. Like, you know what I wish? This is a sincere thing that I'm saying right now. That the Purple Yoshi never gets the 6th level. And that pisses me off. He deserves that 6th level, Sejohn.
So are you asking for Yoshi customization? Like, what are you looking for?
No, I want the Purple Yoshi to be the one who beats Bowser.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be the Green Yoshi, or switch their places.
My bigger thing is that I couldn't figure out. There's no difference in the Yoshis, right? Like, it's not like one is faster than the other, right? And that's one of the bummers that I think also kind of let me down coming from Super Mario to this, is that one of the things that you learn in Super Mario is that certain Yoshi colors mean certain things, you know, certain abilities and powers and stuff like that. And so the fact that didn't carry over into this was very disappointing. Because can you imagine if like the yellow Yoshi levels were designed around being able to stomp, or the purple Yoshi ones were designed around being able to fly? Like, it just that potential not being
realized,
not being handled, not being realized is really kind of disappointing to me. But if you're somebody coming into this game that that might not mean anything to you, because I am openly admitting that is something I carried over from Super Mario World. And a lot of the people that I know that really adore this game and really love this game, this was their introduction to Super Mario, right? To go back to your comment about it being very nostalgia based in its love, like I fail to find anybody who started playing Mario games with Yoshi's Island that don't hold a place in their heart for it, right? There are plenty of people that don't consider it the best Mario game. I don't know anybody that considers it the best Super Mario game. But this idea that, like, the ones that do want to go back to Yoshi's Island, the ones that do want to talk to me about Yoshi's Island, it's because this is the one that they started playing Mario games on. So, like, a lot of my issues I really came to terms with this week really came from the fact that, like, I just wanted more Super Mario World. I just wanted that. And when I didn't get certain elements of that in this game, I just completely wrote it off. When I didn't have a clear UI, when I didn't have different powered Yoshis, when I didn't have the same art style, when I didn't have like all of that shit just went out the fucking window. When all of that stuff went out the window, I just was done with this game before it even started. And that's not fair to the game, because that's not what it is.
Your mileage is definitely going to vary on this one, but a big issue for me is that I never owned it. So it was never a game that, like, oh, I'm bored on a Thursday night, I'm going to pop it in. I think
that's like a telling statement, right? About gaming in general, right? It's like we all kind of fall into that trap, especially kids of like the 90s and the early 2000s, where it's like, yeah, you owned an Xbox, but you only had 3 games in the house. Or I was just talking about this with the PlayStation. My brother and I owned a PlayStation for like, I think a year before we owned a game for it. What we had was we had a demo disc. And we would rent games, obviously, but in terms of owning something, we had the demo disc that came with the PlayStation. So do you know my favorite fucking game of all time was it was fucking Cool Borders, the demo on the demo disc.
Yeah, I don't that doesn't surprise me at all. You're not the first person I've heard that story from, and you probably won't be the last. I mean, the reason why I played Little Nemo yesterday when I had like a spare couple of minutes while they were putting, you know, the child down to bed was because I owned Little Nemo as a kid. Nope, there are whole people who probably don't even know what Little Nemo the Dream Master is, despite the fact that it is this huge, meaningful part of my life. Ditto, Claude and I became best friends yesterday because we beat Bubble Bobble start to finish, right? And like that bonds people, right? The number of people that I've beaten Bubble Bobble with start to finish, I can count on one hand, and I feel like eternally bonded to all of them. Certain people that I haven't spoken to, I like one of the people I reached out to for twin information for one of our ASCU episodes is somebody that I beat Bubble Bobble with, and like that's why I'm like he will answer me. We went through Bubble Bobble together. But then there's a whole
Bubble
like
tontine that you guys run. Yeah.
But there's a whole group of people who like, what the fuck is Bubble Bobble right now? It's like it's what you have. So if you owned that game and you could play that game, you're going to have that affinity for it. And I'll especially say, like I talk about my 2 levels of nostalgia with the Mario games. When I played them as a kid, they were gigantic to me, right? Playing Super Mario Brothers at 3 years old, that game was gigantic to me. Super Mario Brothers 3, the fact that before I had to go to school, I could get through the first 2 worlds, and then I would try to leave the system on so that when I got home, I could finally play World 3, where like right now, within like 2 hours, I'll be done with the game. Like it was as a kid, they just seemed so large and so much to get invested in. And then when I started playing them again in like high school, I realized, oh, they're not huge, but there's like the levels are small, they're realized, and the goal is to get to the end, but then also to see what else you can find. I didn't get a 96 exit clear of Super Mario World until I was 16 years old. I'll admit that, but then I'll also admit that morning that I woke up and watched GamePro TV and it taught me how to finally get to Soda Lake level, that I like went and I did it and was blown away that like Soda Lake is actually something you can play and not just a location on the map. Like, when I found the warp zones in Super Mario Brothers 2 and realized that, like, that game, which is another, like, kind of weird outlier in the series, talking about what was originally Doki Doki Panic when it was released in Japan, that completely opened up that game to me. Because it was another one where, like, I can get as far as I get, but then you have limited continues. So if I could just get to the fourth world, which is where I usually get before I run out of continues, I can probably finish this game. And lo and behold, World 1-3 has a warp to 4-1. So it's I don't know. It's like it's something that grew with me. And what grew with me about Yoshi's Island, finally completing it at 37 years old, is the fact that, like, I don't need to explore and collect everything. These are pretty solid platforming challenges, except for the 3 levels that I fucking hate. Do you want to take a stab at what those 3 levels are, Sejohn? I will tell you this. They are from Worlds 5 and 6. Up until that, pretty much all the levels are pretty enjoyable.
You're talking about my least knowledgeable part of that game.
I think
I got to Worlds 5 and 6 for the first time ever playing it this time.
So I have sent you things from the Mario Wiki in the channel where we are currently recording that will show you all of the level names. So we can do it. And listeners at home, if you want to be part of it, feel free right now to submit your guesses. Pause the show, submit your guesses to thesayReport@gmail.com, and then you'll get to see if you were right or not.
Okay, so is it 5-8?
Actually, 5-8 was freaking incredible. Raphael the Raven is the most inspired boss fight in this game. And honestly, like, there's the disappointment. I guess that purple Yoshi is a blue Yoshi. So I'm sorry. Looking at this, the purple one's a little lighter. And the gold Yoshi is called yellow. This is according to Super Mario Wiki, so we'll use those terms. It would have been really cool, right? The fact that the green Yoshi is going to be the one to fight Baby Bowser. If after Raphael the Raven, you fell back to Earth from the moon, so of course you're still the blue Yoshi.
Yeah.
like they made it work in a way, but they don't do that.
So is it the ski lift level? Because
it is the ski lift level. Ride the ski lifts 5-2. There are so many blind jumps in that level. I was frustrated beyond all fucking measure.
I mean, I hate snow levels in general. The next one after that is the one that really fucking got me. The slippy one. I hate slippy. Oh, I like levels.
That. And I loved Blizzard. Like, it was as if it were an Oreo with shit flavored cream in the middle.
You have to be down on Sluggy's Unshaven Fort, right? You're not big on that one, right?
I mean, I actually really dug that one a lot. I just don't like Sluggy the Unshaven. But I thought that, like, that one was really cool because it's really interesting. I think of the joke in Dark Souls with, like, this is where the real Dark Souls begins, which is something that you can just write willy-nilly. But eventually there is that moment where this is where the real Dark Souls begins. Like, that does happen. That when you get to Sen's Fortress, you're like, oh, fuck. Now, like, you've elevated it somehow. And then even again, once you get the Lord Vessel, it, like, elevates again. Like, this is where the real Yoshi's Island begins. World 5 is when they're like, hey, fuck them kids. Because, like, it is... Sluggy the Unshaven's Fortress is, like, a cool puzzle that, like, none of the levels up to that have been. And you've just gone through, like you said, 3 of the levels that would definitely be very difficult.
Yeah. I don't know about that. You said there were 3 altogether?
There were 3.
How do you feel about the one where you're getting chased by the big old Chompo?
Love it. Absolutely love it. In fact, it's something that I want to talk about it. So in World 5, the 2 of them are in World 5. It's shifting platforms ahead.
Oh, okay.
Because again, there are a couple of blind jumps, and it is so long before you get a checkpoint. And so it's blind jumps where if you lose, you're going right back to the beginning of the game, the beginning of the level, and you're just like, I have to do all of that again?
Yeah,
Like,
though, it really, that was one of those ones where I was finally starting to get some reminiscent like feelings of like some Star World levels from Mario, like Star Road levels, I mean.
yeah,
I don't know, like that one, I'm big on the moving platform type levels. I mean, I think even if you look at some of my Mario Maker stuff, I do a lot of that,
oh
like
yeah,
platforms that like go off into nowhere and you just gotta trust it.
yeah, bummed me out. That level really bummed me out. And then we'll go to World 6.
Hmm.
And let's see if you can guess that.
Well, that's where I was wondering if it was the chain jump one. I mean, these all seem pretty normal to me. The lava one kind of sucked. Like
Uh,
the one where you're outside and there's lava on the ground.
no, I actually loved that. I thought, I'm like, this is cool. Like, it feels like I'm in there. It's the very long cave. And it's another one where, like, I guess there's some lava outside and there are chomp rocks, but the biggest part of that is that, like, oh my god,
That's
give
the one
me
I was talking about. No, that's
yeah.
the one that's got like when you're outside. Like I didn't understand that I could be outside and touch lava and like
And
that one.
yeah.
But so yeah, I'm talking about the
Oh, I
very
get you.
long.
Yeah,
cave,
the very
yes.
long cave. Yeah, don't like that one. But again, it's one of those ones where is a checkpoint? Like, I understand that it's a very long cave, but it doesn't need to be this long. Like,
It doesn't need to be this long.
even the deep underground maze, like, I had fun with that, like, trying to figure it out. Like, a lot of it was, like, it was gratifying, and I felt like I had earned something by doing it. It was fun. But, like, those 3 levels are the levels that I'm just like, curse you levels.
Well, and the thing about like Long Cave, right, is like you've been playing for so long at this point. If you've been playing in a session or two, like you've already been dedicating a lot of time. So for that to be like the shtick of that one is just not fun. And I think kind of to what I was saying earlier, like they don't do enough interesting stuff with that concept for it to be memorable and fun for me,
Yeah. And it feels like we needed a level, so let's just make a long cave level. And if you die at any time, back to the start, big boy.
No, yeah, it's a forced endurance run,
Yeah.
and I'm not a big fan of that.
Not a big, yeah, I don't like that stuff. Like, and like you said, like the 4-room castle that is Sluggy the Unshaven. It's like, that's kind of annoying that, like, here's a 4-room castle, and it's not the end of the game. It is like this weird midpoint to, like, prove that you're good enough to go forward. Like, yeah, Raphael the Raven, I feel like I flew through that level.
No, it's
Yeah.
a weird level
Yeah.
in terms of mechanics because that's the one where you have to like jump from like planet to planet and stuff.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's cool stuff. I don't know. And then, like, tap the red nose, I was kind of bummed because I'm like, oh, I just need to make a hole and drop him in it, huh? The weird part about that one was I lost Mario, and instead of floating up like he does in every other level, he floated down into the lava. And I'm like, I cannot rescue you from the lava, Mario.
Yeah, you got to come up here, bud.
So, like, I'm just gonna beat the guy and hope that the game's like, oh, and we'll give you back Mario because you beat the boss.
But I mean, like, it introduces stuff like the bubble mechanic, which is something that we now see in a bunch of
A
Mario
lot of the
games,
new Super
right?
Mario Brothers games, yeah, that's
Yeah,
how they
we got-
made
we got
co-op
Sonic,
work.
Yeah. I mean, there's early feelings of stuff like Mario Galaxy and stuff in here in terms of the
planet jumping that you just
concepts.
mentioned, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, clearly this game is very formative going forward.
There's direct sequels to this game. There's
Mm-hmm.
other Yoshi games. There's all sort like so clearly like the us sitting here and being grumpy old men about this game like we can't I can't. It's part of why I came into this wanting to talk about like there is people out there where this is their Mario game. This is where their love is. There is a nostalgia for this. People get defensive about this game sometimes, but like there's so much going on in this game that is good and does work for me, but the things that don't are so key and fundamental to the moment-to-moment game loop that I don't enjoy this game.
Yeah, it's what this suffers for me is the fact that it's basically first game syndrome, right? Everything is more defined and refined in the sequel. So Yoshi's Story, another game that I only ever rented, never bought, was super excited to buy it. I'm going to Walmart before school and I'm buying a copy of Yoshi's Story, knowing that when I get home, I'm going to play it. But the rental store broke street date. So the Saturday before it was supposed to come out, I went to they're closed now, so Paradise Video. I can talk about the name of it. And they had it on the shelf, normal rental price. So I rented it, brought it home, and I beat it. And I'm like, that was cool. I don't need to own this game. Because the replayability of Yoshi's Story is, true to its name, it's sort of like a choose your own adventure book, where each world has 4 different levels, and you get to weave together your journey through 6 of those 4 separate levels. And like difficulty is there, and different secrets, like unlocking the black and white Yoshis, which are on my desk in the Say Report studios. I have representations of those too, because I found them on my own and was like, so cool that there's a black and a white Yoshi, and they can eat anything. They can even eat hot peppers.
And you're talking about Yoshi's Story, not Yoshi Island DS or Yoshi's New Island.
No, I'm talking Yoshi's Story for the N64.
Yeah.
The game that, like, I almost bought Star Fox just because I wanted to have Rumble support. And they didn't sell the Rumble pack separate from Star Fox until the week before Yoshi's Island, when I went to go buy Star Fox. And they're like, oh, we have the Rumble pack separate. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to buy a Rumble pack then, if I don't need to buy a game to get the Rumble pack, because I wanted to play Yoshi's Story with the Rumble. Like, I remember, like, these thick things. And then I went and I saw a film at the Avon Cinema that was super inappropriate for a person of my current age. I think I was 11 when that came out. And it was a movie where they said the F word so many times. And then I got a Spike's Junkyard hot dog because they had just opened on Thayer. Ah, the memories. I have memories of Yoshi's Story. Like, that was a cool weekend where I got to play it early and then was like, I don't need to spend the full price of this game because I've gotten the experience. But that game, even speaking to your UI problem from Yoshi's Island, the whole goal of the levels in Yoshi's Story is to eat 30 pieces of fruit. And then, like, the real super, I'm the best at this game, is to eat 30 cassava melons in each level. There are 30 cassava melons hidden throughout the level. So if you can eat all 30 of them, like, you're a god. You found all 30 cassava melons. I'm
just like, I'm also completely, like, fucking blown away by, like, how many Mario baddies actually come from
this game. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, the toadies, the bandits, the blargs, which actually are really interesting, because I think the blargs, and I there's some ghosts that do this too, that eventually become, like, the crawling ghosts on the ceiling and stuff that you see in more than anything Mario Maker is what I'm thinking. Like, there's just stuff. I think this is also the first one where you see, like, red coins, right? Isn't this the first
red
like,
coins are
Mario
introduced in this
ever...
game, which then go forward to be just a huge part of Super Mario 64. Blarg was technically introduced in Super Mario World and called Blarg, but then what you think of as a Blarg, where it's like just a big amorphous blob with a face, comes
and
from Yoshi's Island.
Yeah,
and the teeth, yeah.
Like,
because Blarg, he's just like a fire dinosaur that lives in the lava in Super Mario World. I think of it. Right. Vanilla Dome 3 is where you first see him in, like, an all fortress run of the game, where you're not like going to.
But it's specifically the ghosty ones, the, like, Blarg ghosts or Blarg Witch or Blarg, whatever they're called.
Yeah, the ones that, like, they have the translucency. They're really taking advantage of the Super FX 2 chip that, like, Yoshi's Island is built on. It's why it was so difficult.
Also, we start the inevitable confusion for the rest of eternity about whether or not Bowser Jr., Baby Bowser, Baby Koopa are all
Yeah.
Are all the same character. It's like, what? Well, and that gets even more fucked up because of the sequel. So the direct sequels to Yoshi's Island, which are Yoshi's DS, Yoshi Island DS, and Yoshi's New Island, like literally narratively they continue these stories. It gets so fucking off the deep end in terms of, like, Bowser comes back in time, and so he kidnaps not just Baby Mario, but also Baby Luigi, Baby Peach, Baby Wario, and Baby Donkey Kong, I think. And then it's about, like, finding all of those babies, plus the introduction of Baby Bowser, who is in the first game as the villain.
guy.
Then in the second game, he's a hero until he's not a hero, and then like so Baby Bowser basically fights himself with Bowser. It's like it gets so fucking crazy. The Yoshi Island games like really throw a huge wrench into the whole Mario narrative.
Yoshi's Island DS, where Bowser, like Bowser that we know, not Peaches Bowser, but like the Bowser that we know up to that point, essentially was like, can't beat Mario in the future, I'll go kill him as a baby.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's dark. That's dark, Bowser. No wonder it's Bowser in the dark world in Super Mario 64. You're going to kill an infant because he's a problem for you as an adult. Think, man. You're insane. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm definitely glad that I've played through it, that I can add it to it. And looking at just how fucking bananas Super Mario Brothers Wonder looks, I feel like a lot of that comes from Yoshi's Island.
Well, so we've mentioned before that Nintendo is often at its best when it gets fucking weird, right? When it's willing to take its characters and do something wild with it. You know, look at the Wario games. Look at like or even look at somebody like Link and look at all the different ways that they've gone. You know, with that character and the different styles that they've tried and how that's worked and not worked, and they've continued with some stuff and not others. Like whenever Nintendo is willing to kind of sacrifice one of its sacred cows, like it's always really interesting to watch and always has really cool results. So like I think Wonder is just another in that line, but we'd be remiss to not look at something like Yoshi's Island as one of the earliest times that they do exactly that, right?
I agree. It definitely is that. And again, they've refined it. One of the reasons why I went out and found a copy of Yoshi's Island for the Super Nintendo was because I played Crafted World, I believe is the Switch title. I played the demo of it and loved it. The demo for Crafted World was excellent. And then I was able to get a copy of it new for like $30. Like at one of those like Target buy 2 Switch games and each one is only $30. Or like whatever ridiculousness they did. So I'm like,
we don't want to call it buy one get one free, so get them each at half price.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. It's just buy one get one free, but that they can't say that. No, the game's $30 if you buy another game that we're charging $30 for. Okay. But yeah, so I got that game and I'm like, but before I play this, I feel like I should play the sire of this entire like type of gameplay.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I have to ask you a question. Does Baby Mario's crying like just make your testicles hurt?
No, see, I understand that that's also another big thing that's a big complaint about this game, right? Is everybody talks about the baby crying and the ways that really irks them. And I don't know, it's never bugged me. Also, I will say this. I don't find that I lose him too often, and when I do, it's not for very long. So I also don't quite I didn't die while I played this game.
Well, congratulations.
Well, let me put it this way. I didn't die via Mario getting taken away from me. There were plenty of times where I fucked up and I like fell into a hole or some shit like that. But like that's I don't consider that to be the same thing.
I had Mario taken away from me like 3 times. I think nope, it's gone. I've lost it. I
don't want this to sound like a brag. It's it took me fucking forever because I was being so meticulous and careful, right? If I see danger, I am more likely to stop, kill a bunch of shit with eggs before I move forward and then move forward. So in that, I wasn't losing him very often, so I wasn't hearing him cry very often. So I kept, in doing my due diligence for the episode today, I was doing some research and really, really, really like dug into all of these people out there that are just like, oh my god, and the crying. Every video mentions the crying, and it's like, okay. I didn't pick up on that while I played it, and then I went back and was playing a bit, and that was when I kind of realized. I was like, well, I guess if you only hear him when you lose him, and you're playing as carefully and slow and methodical as I am, so I wasn't losing him too often, then I guess you're okay. Also, these guys are getting through the game in under 2 hours. It took me, I think, like 10. Like, so just to kind of give you an idea of exactly how slow I was going.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the first one where I lost it. It was like I didn't lose him until the 4th world. and then I lost him 2 other times, and I'm just like
boss fights. I lose them a
annoyed.
lot in boss fights, specifically like because they're kind of built to be like screen covering, you know, versions of characters. Like they're just so big, it's kind of hard to not run into them from time to time. But again, like you hit them, you lose Mario, you just jump and get Mario, you're good. And like if you're really paying attention, you can methodically kind of like realize, okay, I'm gonna hit him, I'm gonna lose the baby, but if I land on that platform, then I can literally just like jump and I'll have the kid back instantly, which is super helpful because, like, as I said before, like that's how health works in this. So like there's no danger in hurting yourself. You know you're gonna lose baby Mario, but if you can map that out, then you're fine, right? Like so there's also a lot of times in this game where you're just not in danger. I know one of the big things I talked about was like that I found this game really difficult growing up, and I think what it is that, like you said earlier, I find this game really difficult to do all the things this game wants me to do. The second that you throw that out the window, this game is not hard to play. It's just that, like, you know, like, what are you doing at that point if you're not if the game is telling you, hey, you should collect all these red coins, or hey, you should collect all these flowers, and you're just like, nah, then why am I playing this game? Why don't I play something else then that doesn't have those mechanics in it?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I lost 3 lives to losing Mario, and I have them written down. I don't have it here. I will share it next episode. I thought I had it in my notes, and I don't. And I'm a little disappointed about that, but also, I mean, I'll address it. It'll happen. But yeah, overall, I'm glad I played it. It's made me excited. I've now completed every 2D like Mario game before Wonder comes out in 20 days. So like I'm in a really cool spot for that.
Do we know if there's going to be any online play on that one?
So there is online play. You can like create a lobby, but it's sort of like Dark Souls, where you'll be a ghost in my game or I'll be a ghost in your game. And we can interact that way.
Interesting. We'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens when it comes down. But Sejohn, before we address that, and all of this Mario Talk was a great like cream to this sandwich, we have another task to address. And I gotta tell you, this was a hunt. This was much more difficult than finally completing Yoshi's Island. Tell the people what we're doing, Siege.
Well, so the task that I gave you, Dev, is I tasked you and everybody out there to go out there and find the new Mtn Dew VooDew. We have hit that time of the year again where the mystery flavors are upon us. And Mtn Dew, apparently we've all decided that the spookiest time of the year is also the year where we're allowed to put random shit in food and not tell kids what they're eating. I
got a razor blade in my Mtn Dew.
Well, and like mine is arsenic flavored. One of the big things that Mtn Dew has done over the last few years, right, is introduced this new flavor, this mystery flavor every year, and people have really kind of gotten on board with the whole marketing nonsense of, like, you know, all working together to figure out what the mystery flavor is. And that's cute and all. It's getting a little out of hand because what I ended up doing this week was, since I had already, as I mentioned last episode, I already had a bottle of VooDew and I already had some thoughts about what's going on with it. But I didn't want to give you guys a task that I had already completed, so I tasked myself with doing the same thing with the new Fanta that is out there, the new Phantom Fanta or whatever the fuck they're calling it, the Halloween flavor. Have you seen this one anywhere?
I have not seen that anywhere.
I believe it's specifically the zero sugar one.
Yeah.
So basically Coca-Cola last year, in 2022, announced that they were going to get in on the mystery game, right? This is what I mean, is it's gotten a little out of hand because everybody seems to be doing this now. But they announced a very specific mystery flavor initiative last year that started last year, which I believe is where the Dream one came from. They got together with a collaborator. They did, like, guess what the flavor is. Everybody figured out it was cotton candy, and that's where Coca-Cola Dream has come from for the last year. This is their thing this year, I guess, is the Fanta mystery flavor for zero sugar mystery flavor. So I also got a bottle of that. So I've got VooDew sitting here with me. I've got Fanta mystery flavor sitting here with me. And I've got a couple of guesses about what I think they are. But you said you were able to find VooDew eventually?
Yeah, so first of all, if you are looking at it, if you have a bottle, this is VooDew 5. Because there's a ever so slightly hidden 5 in the candle of the hooded, like, Voodoo Reaper figure on the bottle.
Well, do you see that the Reaper figure is also a question mark? There's some actually very good
like there's some really cool stuff. Yeah, like the question mark there around the hooded section. So this is Voodoo 5. I was able to find it. Here's the crazy thing. So I looked and looked. I couldn't find it anywhere. And then I went online, and Shaw's supermarket, of all the supermarkets, not the one that I think of first, second, or even third in terms of places to go, said that they had it available. So there's a Shaw's near where my parents go for like medical appointments on Fridays. And I'm like, could you just stop by and see if they have it? So they went in. There existed one case of the Voodoo at that Shaw's. It was the zero flavor. So it was Mountain Dew Zero. And Claude finally got to get in on it because they've never done a Voodoo in Zero before. I don't think. This seems like the first time that they did Mountain Dew Zero Voodoo. So we bought that. And while hanging out yesterday, we tried it and did it. But then also driving home, we had to stop for gas. And I'm like, I'm just going to pop my head in and see if this gas station has it. And they had it. And they had it at buy one, get one free. And as I walked in, the girl behind the counter was like, oh yeah, we just got a stock in today. So it was an exciting time to be able to buy 4 bottles of like full sugar Voodoo. Or full fat, so that Will and our UK friends feel like they're part of it. It was awesome to do it and to try it. But the biggest fucking problem that I have with Mountain Dew VooDew, and I'm not going to blow up your spot, I'm going to keep it a secret. You'll know, Sejohn, I sent you a package of exactly what the flavor is. So
the prevailing theory, and this is where I kind of all right. So let's talk about this. So when I first tasted Voodoo, the immediate thought that I got was like a gummy worm or a gummy bear. I was like, okay, so this is something in the gummy variety and in the candy variety, but in the past it's not been so specific. Right, it's been a berry, it's been a fruit, it has been something. Something that you could put your finger on, but something much more top level, right?
I think cotton candy and wild berry are two that definitely have been, like Fruity Pebbles.
Right. Well, so Fruity Pebbles gets a little bit more into kind of the more specific branding that I really started to kind of hone in on, because I couldn't help it as I was drinking it. I was like, but there's like it's not just a gummy candy. It's not just like a Laffy Taffy or something. There is something specific that I was like tasting there. And a couple of days later, like, as I was kind of still thinking about it, because I went out and I got the Fanta and I was laughing about how we were going to do this whole thing, that was when it really started to hit me that what I was remembering at that point was, do you remember the old white Airheads that I believe were also mystery flavor Airheads?
Yes.
Like, that is what, like, all I could keep coming back to. I think those eventually ended up being, like, cherry or black cherry or something, right? So that is my current prevailing theory for it, is that it is whatever that like white Airheads flavor is. And then I will give a little bit away. It has come out, they have been not too shy about this, that this flavor this year is going to be something brand specific. Basically, they're going to start shifting, and I don't blame them for doing this. This is just good marketing. They're just going to start shifting this sort of stuff towards not just like, hey, it's orange this year, but they're going to go out of their way to be like, this one's Sunny D, right? Like this, they're going to do more brand specific flavoring. So when I was like tasting like gummy candy and trying and something wasn't clicking, I feel like I was on the right path. I was like, yeah, there's definitely something more specific here than just like gummy bear. So my current theory is that it's Airheads, and that it's something like the Airheads mystery flavor, the old white Airheads. So we'll see what that becomes. Fanta, though, I think is still in those early stages of them, just like Coke specifically is still in those early stages of them just doing whatever, because I'm pretty sure that one is just like blueberry or something, or blackberry specifically. Like, I don't think it's anything more than that. Part of the problem is that because it's only available in the zero sugar version, there is a huge lack of sweetness to it, which I don't think is doing it any favors. Like,
yeah, I understand that. It was really interesting. I liked that I got to try the Mountain Dew Zero sugar flavor of this, because it's like, oh, it's definitely, I feel it. I feel the flavor. I understand what the flavor is. So, a couple of things. The first year that had the zero sugar variant was the 2022 VooDew, which is actually the only VooDew that I never got to try, which now I'm sad about that. I'll just be honest. And it was in 2021 where they released the mascot of VooDew. His name is Voodoo Grim. I cannot believe that his name is Voodoo Grim. That really feels like placeholder name. And then, excuse me, let's just call him Voodoo Grim. Sorry about that. But my biggest issue with this is that Friday morning, I log into social media, and there it is. I'm looking at it right now, 22 hours ago. So on September 29th, before like October even happened, no, September 28th, they announced what the flavor was. And the flavor was announced by the people that they are partnering with. So, unfortunately, I didn't get to explore the mystery alongside you because I couldn't find it before that. And I'm looking at it right now and, like, very obviously, I'm like, that is exactly
wait, but they have the competition
is.
Going still to, like, guess the flavor to, like, win, like, points.
Okay, well, guess what? You can know exactly what the flavor is. If you go hunting.
Let me go to the... Hold on.
I'm on the Wikipedia page where I found out Voodoo Grim's name.
Fandom
and
Wiki.
It says that it's been unveiled.
No, you got to go to the Mountain Dew Fandom Wiki.
I'm on the Mountain Dew Fandom Wiki.
Don't
ruin it for yourself.
Or whatever it is.
Don't ruin it for yourself. Yeah, mountaindew.fandom.com. Don't ruin it for yourself, Sejohn. I did a lot of work so that you're going to get the answer in a package.
The current 2023 release, the flavor has not been announced yet. What are you talking about?
Well, until this point, its flavor is unveiled to be blank. Because it's written there. Its flavor is unveiled to be redacted flavor. I'm looking at it right there. So don't ruin it for yourself. I'm not seeing it,
but I'm not going to keep looking for it.
Yeah,
so.
I don't want you to. I want you to get it in the mail, and then we'll talk about it next week. So if you did tune in to hear us discuss the mystery was spoiled for me, and I have the image, and it's floating around. I honestly can't believe from a marketing standpoint that they blew up their spot on, like, September 28th.
Well, like, again, I was under the impression, and maybe I'm misunderstanding how this whole thing works, but, like, part of this whole thing is that, like, by guessing the flavor, by participating in this, like, you're engaging in, like, I thought there were prizes. I thought there was not like big prizes, not like, hey, you're gonna win a trip to Fiji or some shit like that, but like, win some Mountain Dew boxer shorts or something if you participate in this, and we'll pull a name out of a hat to decide who's gonna get the one pair we made, right? Like that kind of shit. So the idea that like they're already kind of ruined that feels a little bit like they're undercutting the whole concept of the marketing. Right.
Like, honestly, the people that they've partnered with probably want to be like, don't you want to go out and buy and compare? Like, that's why we're revealing it right now.
I guess that's true. If they are going to start shifting towards a more brand-specific way of doing it, then it needs to benefit both beneficial brands. For both of them to just be out there and be honest about it. Yeah. But, like, part of the whole, like, shtick of it is the mystery flavor idea, right? Like, it's like, is the guessing what it is. So, like, it's dumb. It's shooting themselves in the foot.
When I couldn't get you, I really hoped that I could get it to you by the recording, and I was so upset that I couldn't, because I was gonna totally rain down fire upon, like, you've ruined what this whole thing was supposed to be. You're revealing it on social media. You're like proud. You're like, we're so happy to have partnered with Mountain Dew, and it's just like, but you've taken all the fun out of it. And honestly, that's what a lot of marketing does. We haven't been able to complain about spoilers for movies in advertising. Here's spoilers for fucking soda in advertising. I was kind of bummed to, like, see the solution, and I'm like, But now, let me tell you this. I'm more bummed that this is only going to be a limited edition flavor. Because I freaking love this flavor. It's a flavor that I enjoy in soda to begin with. And then for it to be that very specific version of that flavor, I'm just like, that sucks that it's going away.
Yeah, I mean, like, that is also a part of it, but yeah, I don't know. This will be wild.
Yeah. Just so that we have it, the flavors before. So it started in 2019, and that was candy corn. In 2020, it was fruit candy explosion, which is a really fun way to say Skittles. In
I think Gushers when you say that,
but when you think about the flavor in 2021 being fruit candy chews, that seems like a real fly way to say Starburst.
Yeah.
And then when you get to 2021 is the Starburst fruit candy chews, and then for 2022 sour candy flavor, like also like Sweet Tarts. No, not Sweet Tarts. Probably like Sour Patch Kids. Like,
yeah.
And again, I never got to try that one. And now it's just still a placeholder, but it says the flavor right there.
Well, and probably specifically sour watermelon, because wasn't that also the year that they introduced Major Melon?
It was. I believe so. Major Melon might have been the year before. I mean, everything is just sort of rolled together because
right.
It
But you just take Major Melon and then you just add some more citric acid to it, and suddenly you've got sour watermelon.
And we know they can do sour because that's what Pitch Black 2 was sour grape, which was just hilarious. So yeah, I was bummed that they had ruined it for me, but it was still fun yesterday with Claude drinking the zero and him being like, I think it tastes like this, but I know that there's something specific and I don't know what it is. And my favorite part about that was he's like, I could be like Swedish fishy or like that type of stuff. And I asked him, and you can attest to this, so you didn't grow up in a town that had a penny candy counter? And he roasted me with, no, I didn't grow up in the 1950s. But you've been to my penny candy store, Sejohn.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
and
we used to go to Reds on a regular basis.
Yeah,
man, yeah.
It was a good time going to those penny candy stores, right?
You drop like $3 and you get like a paper sack just full of sugar that then you're just fucking high for the rest of the day.
But the second he did that, I'm like, what my mind immediately jumped to was that penny candy counter in Templeton, Massachusetts, where we've been together, and like buying Swedish fish, and those were a penny a fish, but then the flavor that this is, it was $0.25 a piece because of how important the flavor was.
Well, so this has me thinking about like what future flavors I want from them, and this is what I mean is like, I feel like they're gonna go much more like brand heavy, right? So we'll get like a Pop-Tart flavored one next year or some shit like that, but I want them to go in a whole other direction. I want them to go for like dead brands, like Necco wafer flavored ones. That'd
be cool. I want them to go not savory. I don't want like
sugar dots flavored. So this just tastes like paper. You just put a bunch of paper in this, didn't you?
I mean, what I was thinking is like I would want an Oreo flavored one where like you get the hints of the chocolate.
Well, if we can introduce chocolate, if we can introduce chocolate to the equation, we've got a whole other. Can you imagine like a Reese's Pieces, not a Reese's peanut butter cup, but a Reese's Pieces flavored soda?
Dude, I want a Milky Way flavored soda right now, where like it's real chocolate heavy and then it's salted caramel, baby. Make it happen. Pumpkin spice, right? How is there not a pumpkin spice voodoo? I think that they would probably destroy the world. Let's be honest.
The idea that there has not been a pumpkin Mountain Dew though over the years is actually pretty astounding. You're not wrong.
I mean, the crazy thing is like they had that ginger Mountain Dew. That like the gingerbread house one, that it looked just like what Voodoo looked like, and they're like, because that's the frosting. That was one of the best like ginger sodas I've ever had. In terms of like, you use ginger ale or ginger beer as a mixer. As a mixer,
if you actually get like homemade ginger beer, it's naturally that color anyway. So it was probably one of the most natural Mountain Dews you'd ever tasted too, on top of everything. Yeah, it was delicious, and as a mixer and that. So I think I still have a bottle of that in the downstairs fridge to like bust out for some party. But yeah, so there's the Voodoo thing. We will reveal the flavor next week. So not to be like more news at 11. Yeah, right? I'm sticking by though the colorless mystery flavored Airhead. I'm pretty sure is what I was tasting while that's on the table. I can't answer because I know the answer. But that's where Sejohn is at. He's gonna get a package sometime this week. He's gonna glare at me, and it's gonna be fun. I can't wait till that happens. I also like them sticking to the colorless concept is also really interesting because like it does really kind of affect like your thinking. I have to wonder if part of the reason why I keep thinking of that mystery no color Airhead is because that's just also the color. That's what always mystery has been to us. I get that. Right. Oh God, you know what I want? Remember Shark Bites? I want specifically the Great White Shark flavored Voodoo Mountain Dew.
But my favorite thing was Claude's wife yesterday, Reagan. She was all, I don't want to even know what this looks like. She took one sip and she's like, I'm out. I hate the flavor of it, but I can only imagine that it is the like brightest, grossest, food dye-iest red color inside of that can. And I'm like, excuse me, I'm going to go get a clear glass from your kitchen. And I poured it out, and it's that milky sort of white color. And her response was, that is even worse. So we had fun with VooDew. We had VooDew fun. I'll be honest about that. We had a good time. So thank you, Sejohn, for that. The hunt section of it, trying to find it, though, I would have wrung your neck, man. Like, nowhere had
I honestly don't know how you're having such a... There's fucking pallets of this shit out here. Every freaking gas station has, like, cases of this stuff.
Wait, right, and I finally saw that on Friday, so I don't know if it was a thing where, like, we didn't get it until, like, for October, but I did. I went to...
But like, that's even crazier if you think about the whole marketing side of it, of them releasing what it is, and, like, you were in a position where you didn't even have access to it after they announced what the flavor
they had announced it, yeah. So I'm just like, oh, that's great. But yeah, it's weird because you go to the Mountain Dew website, they have the locator, right? And they tell you it's available at all these locations. And I went to all those locations and it wasn't available. And I'm like, I think it's saying it's available because Mountain Dew is available there. And I can test that theory because the gas station where I finally got it from, I had tested to see if they're doing like a pitch black Slurpee, like slushy sort of thing. And they said that this one would have that on the locator. They said they were out of VooDew, but I'm like, is it working though? Let's try something else crazy. And it's an exclusive to that. So I do it. They say it's in there. Go over to the slush machine. There ain't no pitch black slush. What you doing? What you doing here? Like, so like, as good as that locator is, and in terms of items of food locators that you can find on the internet, the Mountain Dew one is really good because of the level of customization. You can check off exactly the flavors or the varieties that you want, and it's supposed to, spit out the information. Now, the unfortunate thing is, I don't know how that inventory system works, right? They might have on record that this gas station ordered it, but that doesn't mean that they have it in stock. Yeah. They just are supposed to have it based on the purchase agreements that they're a part of. So, who knows? But I did find it. I love the flavor. I love the flavor so much. I fucking hate that it's going to go away. And we will have the actual flavor reveal for you next week on the Say Report. And that's something to look forward to. Brief housekeeping before we share our tasks. Usually our 350th episodes, we kind of teabag all the other shows that have 350 episodes or 349 episodes. We passed
all those other 350th episodes we've done.
Yeah, but like the 250th episode, we got to have some fun with that.
We've done on past anniversary episodes. Yeah,
just specifically on the 50s, the 150 and the 250. But as obviously because of SAG-AFTRA, we can't do that. But please understand, we have the list. and so
we know who you are, and we kicked your ass.
We kicked your ass, and eventually on that supplemental report, you're gonna get your comeuppance.
Oh man.
Excellent. Yeah. So tasks for this week, or do you want to take a week off? I mean, this was like a big anniversary one. If you got one prepared, I'm excited to do it, but
I mean, we're rolling into October, and it's the spooky season. And I asked you guys a couple of weeks ago for some suggestions on spooky games, but I'm going to turn it around a little bit because I got one that I want you all to play. And I will be honest, I found it, I refound it because of Yoshi's Island. One of the big things about Yoshi's Island, we didn't really mention this, but one of the reasons that we even really picked up on it is like it's on the Switch right now, right? Like It is available on Switch online. And so it's also just super accessible in terms of old video game Nintendo, which is not always the case, right? So with that in mind, I'm laughing because I really am excited to hear what Devon has to say both this week and next after he does it. But Devon, I would like you, and I'd like anyone at home that has access to it, on the Switch Online service, there's a little game called Alone in the Dark. I believe it's specifically Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare is the GBA classic.
Wait, is it regular Game Boy?
I thought it was Game Boy Advance.
Well, do you have a separate Switch account from the one that you're on with me?
No, I don't think so.
Then you don't have access to Game Boy Advance games.
No, I was playing it, so I guess it's on the regular Game Boy.
So I believe it's regular Game Boy. I just wanted to make sure you said GBA.
Yeah.
So
Game Boy Color. Sorry, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's a Game Boy Color game.
That's what it is. Oh yeah, yes, not a Game Boy.
I kind of want to throttle you right through the.
No, I've already been playing it, so I already know that we have access to it. Yeah. Also, that would never stop us anyway.
Right, exactly. This is like Saberwolf. Let's do Saberwolf.
But no, I discovered it as we were playing, as I was playing Yoshi's Island. Well, I again rediscovered it because I actually played through it when it first came out, because I honestly couldn't fucking believe that was one of the games that they chose to put up.
It was one of the premier games. It was we're starting with Alone in the Dark. Great, that's cool. Yeah, no, Alone in the Dark. I'm willing to give some time to Alone in the Dark.
Yeah, and I'm not saying anybody out there has to finish it. I don't know if you can. I will be very curious to hear what Devon does with this. But as we roll into the spooky season, and I'm gonna start playing some spooky games, the game I want you all to play is Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare.
All right, cool. For me, because it is the spooky season and it's officially October, I am going to be spinning AFI's All Hallow EP. In fact, as soon as we finish recording, I'm going to take down, I believe it's currently my copy of Steely Dan Asia that's framed and hanging in the hallway. The All Hallows EP is about to take that place. But what I am very interested in, Sejohn, and everybody out there, find 3 spooky seasons songs 3 to present to the class. Let's try to avoid the AFI All Hallows EP. We have a VSE on it if you want to hear our thoughts on that one. I will be saying that I can't use it, and there's some great spooky stuff on there, but I'm looking to expand my horizons a little bit. So, let's do it. 3 spooky songs 3, Sejohn.
Yeah, just with everything going on with the strike and stuff, we can't talk about John F. Squash Nuts there.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those situations where it's like we have the added difficulty of, wouldn't it just be fantastic to take that song by noted songstress of Redded Hair from a particular film celebrating its 30th anniversary? Yes, it would. But bands themselves are known to do spooky songs. So, I mean, if it's been featured in a film, that's fine, but it probably came beforehand. But if it was written specifically for a film or movie, I'm sorry, it's out of it, right? We got some restraints on us, Siege. It should be interesting. Let's expand our horizons in the realm of spooky songs.
See here, listening to Holiday by DJ Miker, and anybody that knows.
Are you listening to music while you record the podcast?
Yeah, man.
This is why I've had other host companions that you're not aware of. No. Sorry, that was me. All right. Anything to add, Sejohn, before we end this one?
No, I'm excited to talk to everybody next week about some Halloween stuffs.
Yeah, I'm excited to reveal the flavor of voodoo, and so you have a week to go out and try it and send your things. Right now, it's still going to be emails to thesayreport@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. But I said we'd have a big announcement in our Mr. Brightside episode. Go listen to our Mr. Brightside episode. It is fucking unhinged. Not to cross promote too much, that we would have an announcement for the 350. We are starting the task, and I know it's not super hard, but to have an actual Discord server where people can come together and talk about the show, right? We're breaking ground on it this October. So we'll have more information as more episodes come out. Again, anything from you, Siege, or are we ready to send this one to Will to lock it up?
No, let's say goodbye.
All right. Goodbye, Will. Bring us home. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.